You're going to do most of the talking today.
Oh, okay.
This is networking part 9, attracting your ideal client, lecture 7, social media. All right. So what we've done is we've talked about morning joes, we've talked about elevator pitches, we've talked about weekly luncheons, and there's a huge amount of noise where I am. So Chaffee, I'm going to turn this over to you to talk about social media, and I'll pop in every once in a while. Uh, we've had a rainstorm. It's wide open, as you can see. I'm on the Colombian coast of the Caribbean. It's wonderful here, but we just had a downpour, and there's water all over the place. And some guy has decided to drill. So, with that, hopefully everyone will excuse me. And Chaffee, I'll let you take over talking about social media.
Awesome. Well, Scott, love your feedback. Whenever you feel you need to jump in, please do so. And, I could spend and have spent over 3 days talking about social media, how to use it, what to use it for. And, in the time that we have here, I really want to condense it and make it concise as much as possible so that we give you the nuggets of gold that you need in order to maximize your time on social media. So, first and foremost, let me just say that social media encompasses so many different things. We have multiple different social media sites: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Instagram. I mean, you name it. That's just some of the top 5. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of different social networking sites that you can go on. And so, how do you use it? Like, what is the best way of using it? And first and foremost, I do want to stress that the name social media, what a lot of people who get on social media for business forget about is the first word of social media is social. And so a lot of times when you're on a social network, and ads pop up and you're advertising your business, people aren't looking for ads. People aren't looking to buy something, to spend money. They're looking to be social. And so if you go on Facebook or Twitter and all you do is start posting about your business, start posting about, what you do and telling people to buy, all you're doing is spamming them, and they're going to tune you out. And so I've spent a ton of time on social media. I started Facebook back in 2008 timeframe, and I actually had a company where we were teaching social media training. We were teaching people how to use Facebook, how to use Twitter, how to use LinkedIn for their businesses. And so very familiar with this. I have maxed out my Facebook friends amount, which is you have a maximum of 5,000 friends that you can have. You can have multiple pages with unlimited number of fans, only you can only have 5,000 friends on Facebook. I have over 40,000 people on Twitter, Twitter followers. Instagram, I haven't used Instagram, believe it or not, just because I just have been focusing on other things. So I do know a lot of people on Instagram, and I know a lot of people on YouTube, though, that do very well with YouTube and Instagram. Those are two of the hottest things right now. And obviously Snapchat is up and coming, and a whole bunch of other things. Only let's again focus on you and how you use social media and go back to that first part, which is social. And so how do you talk about, let me answer this question first, is how do you talk about your business and be social about it, right? How do you get people excited about what you're doing and how you're doing it, only in a social way, so that you're not selling them, or you're not feeling, or you're not giving them the impression that you're promoting something all the time. And the way to do this, the easiest way, is people love just natural, spontaneous content about the things that you're doing. And so let me give you an example. I work with a lot of real estate investors, people who buy, fix, and flip properties. And a way to be social on these social networks while promoting your business is tell them what you're doing in the process of buying, fixing, and flipping. And so if you're looking to buy some properties, maybe you talk about a conversation you had with some sellers. Maybe you talk about some of the challenges you had finding different properties. Maybe you show them videos of properties that you're looking at and why you might buy it or why you might not buy it, right? If you're fixing up a property, then obviously as you're going through and you're looking at things that you're fixing, you're talking about, what you have to fix, how you're going to fix it. Or if you're not the one fixing it, then obviously you might want to interview your contractor. You might want to interview your general contractor or some of the people working on the properties. You might want to interview your real estate agent that helped you find the property. And so all this is content, right? And all you're doing is really just talking to the camera about what you're doing in your business, and it's all natural. And so when people think about, what do I share, what do I put on, what do I post on Facebook, or what I post on Instagram, well, it's just you're sharing what you're doing. And at the end of that, then you say, hey, if you want more information or you want to work with me, just go to my website, www.keyconceptcoaching, that's mine.com, right? And so you can just tell people what you're doing by just sharing what you're doing on a regular daily basis. It doesn't have to be something profound, something amazing. It's just what you're doing on a regular basis. And what's interesting is you'll find that people are interested in just the mundane. People are interested in the challenges that you're going through in everyday life, because those are things that they can relate with. Those are things that they can say, oh, I experienced the same thing that they did, or I went through that same thing, or I had a friend that did the same thing that they did. And so that's what they love, just that spontaneous content that you can just talk about what you're doing and how you're doing it. Now, in order to be successful on social media, what I recommend is that you actually schedule times to post your content, because two things. One, it forces you to post content on a regular basis, because now it's in your calendar. You know that you have to post content during this time period, and you're sharing information during this time period. And the second thing is that you get followers that will then go on live at whatever time it is that you post on a regular basis. And they know that on Friday at 3 o'clock, or on Monday at 1 o'clock, or Wednesday at 10 o'clock, or whatever that time is, they know that you're going to post additional new content at that time. And so it programs your followers to get on so that they can then start engaging with you. And that's the key with this content, is that you're sharing content to get people to engage with you so that you can communicate with them, talk with them, and network with them, because that's what this is all about, right? Networking. And your goal is to get them to go from your content, which is online, to connecting with you either via chat or email or even a phone call. And ideally, if they're local, in person, so that you can work with them in person. And so schedule your social content every single week. I recommend that you do it at least 2 to 3 times a week if possible, if not more, right? Only now, in addition to that scheduled content, you can also just, whenever you have time, and I got to tell you, this thing right here, the cell phone, makes it so easy for you just to get on and just post something real quick, a comment, something you're sharing, snap a picture, hit post, and you're done. So technology today has made sharing on social networks so easy that it's ridiculous. And here's the other thing, is that while spontaneous content, like I said, just snapping a picture and sharing it, is the best kind of content, when you schedule your content, you can actually plan that out ahead of time. As a matter of fact, with certain tools today, you can schedule your content out for the entire week or the entire month or the entire year to go out on automatic. So I can do, for example, let's just say 52, I come up with 52 motivational facts or ideas, right? So different ideas to keep you motivated. I can come up with 52 ways of doing that. I can then use a tool and schedule that once a week to go out at a certain time. So every single week, there's a new motivation that goes out to keep you motivated. And that'll go out kind of like an autoresponder. So we've talked about autoresponders in the past with email, only this is an autoresponder for your social networks. And so you can have automated content scheduled to go out at specific times every single week, every single month, or every single day, depending on what social network you're on. And so that's the other thing that I want to cover real quick before I go into some of those tools. And I know, Scott, you're familiar with some of these tools too. So when we get there, chime in if you can. The final thing I want to say is that when you, and I just lost my train of thought. That's all right though. Is that this content that you can program, so you can schedule all that out, you can have that go out, you can then post whenever you're available, spontaneous content. And that's the other thing that I want to share, is that you got to know your social networks. And so, for example, if I'm on LinkedIn, I don't want to share something 12 times a day. Whereas if I'm on Twitter, if I want to share something once an hour, every single hour, that's acceptable, right? So LinkedIn is kind of known as more of the professional network versus the social network. It's a social professional network, shall we say. And so, you know, if you're posting every single hour the same thing, that kind of annoys people. Whereas on Twitter, people are coming in and out and jumping in and out all the time. So you can post something every single hour and it doesn't really bother people, because it's really just who's on at that time. They might see it or they might not see it. And so you really got to know your different social networks. And just, you know your followers on each of those networks, so that you can provide them the content that they're looking for. And so again, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest, they're all different. They have all different kind of behaviors. And just spend a little bit of time doing some research on, you know, what kind of followers are on Pinterest, or what kind of people what kind of people like certain YouTube videos, if you want to use YouTube as a social network. So, and again, their social networks are always changing and they're always growing, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in the coming year or two. So with that, let's talk about some of these tools that you can use to aggregate and schedule and program your content. And I would say one of the most common ones, or one of the most well-known ones, is this tool called Hootsuite. So Hootsuite, Hootsuite. And Hootsuite actually got bought out by Twitter. So they're actually owned by Twitter. And so you know that they integrate well with Twitter because they're owned by Twitter. So what Hootsuite allows you to do is, like I said, I can actually in a spreadsheet, in a Word, Excel spreadsheet, type in 50, 100, 200, 300 different quotes or tweets that I want, and then I could import that right into Hootsuite and schedule that however I want. So let's say I have 365 powerful quotes, and I want one quote to go out every single day. Well, I can type the quotes out in a spreadsheet. I can upload that spreadsheet, and that will automatically create tweets that will go out at every single day for a full year, 365 days. And so now I have something going out on Twitter every single day that's new content. And so that's a very powerful tool. And it also, this is really cool. So Hootsuite also allows you to post to multiple social networks at the same time. So think about that. If you are on 10 different social networks, if you did it all yourself, you would have to log on, do a post, log off, log on to the next one, do a post, log on. And, you know, it's the same post every single time. Whereas with Hootsuite, I could take those 365 quotes that I did, upload it in Hootsuite, and then in one press of the button, it will go out to all 10 of my social networks, or however many that I've signed up for at one time. So it looks like I'm posting on every single social network at the same time, when I've just automated the whole thing for the entire year. So it's a huge time saver. It's a freemium model, right? So if you're familiar with that, it means that there's a free version, I believe, that actually allows you to connect with 3 different social networks. And if you pay, I think it's like 10 or 15 bucks a month, so really inexpensive, you can connect up to 50 different social networks at the same time. So it's definitely something tool that you want to look into. Another one, Scott, I know you've used before, is Buffer. And with the Buffer tool, and what Buffer does is that actually you can upload and create tweets on buffer.com. And what it does is it actually figures out the best time for those posts to go out to your social networks. And so somehow, using the algorithms and the tools that they have, it will actually automate and send out posts to your social networks at whatever time that their algorithm figures would be the best time to get the most engagement for your posts. So I don't know how they do it. I'm not really sure what the algorithm does or how it does it. I just know that they have something there that schedules it out and sends it out for you. Working with your plan to get the most engagement for those posts and everything that you want. All right. Another tool, Scott, I think you added this, which is IFTTT. Again, it's IFTTT. And that stands for, I forgot what it stands for. It stands for if this, then that, I believe is what it stands for. If this, then that. And so it's an algorithm that says, if this happens, then this should also happen. And so you create these algorithms on IFTTT. And what it will do is that if you send out a post on Facebook, then this shall happen. Then you can also send out a post on Twitter. And so you can create these rules on IFTTT to connect multiple social networks that if this happens or if this occurs, if I get a direct response or I get a message or I send this out, then also do this on this site. And so very powerful to also automate your social networks and connect to your social networks. And again, huge time savers. So definitely look at that up. And then the fourth tool that I want to share with everyone is a tool called Zapier or Zapier or however you want to pronounce that. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Zapier.com. Zapier is usually used to connect multiple different automate, as it says, automate workflows. It's actually used to connect. Again, it's very similar to IFTTT, used to automate and connect two different systems, shall we say. So for example, if you have a CRM and a email autoresponder, you can use Zapier to connect the two if there isn't an automatic integrated system already. So if you're using MailChimp as a email system and you're using HubSpot as a CRM and they don't automatically connect, well, you can use Zapier to create a portal between the two so that when you send out an email in MailChimp as your autoresponder, it will update your HubSpot CRM and let you know what happened with that process. And so you can use Zapier for social networks and connect your social networks like you do with IFTTT. And you could also use it to connect anything that has those APIs or anything that has the systems that allow those two things to connect. And so those are 4 tools that you definitely want to look into. And so let me just review real quick. I know I've been talking a lot, and if you've been taking good notes, hopefully you've gotten it all. Is first and foremost, spontaneous content is going to be best for you. So if you have this thing called an iPhone or Samsung or any kind of Android or anything with a high quality camera, you want to be taking pictures, you want to be recording videos, and then you can post it directly into the apps on the phone itself to your social networks. And so that's what's usually going to get the most kind of engagements for you. Secondly, is you want to schedule your posts on a regular basis. That forces you to post content on a regular basis, and it allows your followers to know when you're going to share new content. Third is to know your social networks. And so, understand the behaviors of each social network so that you can really maximize the benefit of each of those social networks. And then fourth, I gave you a bunch of tools, including Hootsuite, Buffer, IFTTT, and Zapier to automate the process of sharing those posts and sharing the content that you create that's not spontaneous on a regular basis so that you can schedule out your posts and it looks like you're online all the time, even when you're sleeping. And so I've used that before. It's great. People would start sending me direct messages and replying to tweets while I'm in a training class and I'm speaking. And it's pretty funny. It's great that they think that I'm online and it allows me to share content on a regular basis. And then obviously my goal, the goal of all of this that we've talked about is to create engagement, right? Is to get them to respond to your posts, get them to respond to the content that you're sharing so that you can communicate with them, chat with them, and eventually start working with them if that makes sense for you. And so that's the social media in a nutshell, Scott. Covered a lot.
You did, and you did a great job, Chaffee. the one thing that I really got out of what you said, and I think it's really important, is how overwhelming this can be. Because I'm going to
Yeah.
post on LinkedIn, I'm going to post here and here. I mean, there are literally hundreds of potential places that you could be posting to. But when you create the, whether it's IFTTT or Hootsuite, or where you have this trigger, what I like about Buffer and IFTTT is that you can do something once and then it'll post it everywhere else. So for example, let's say, like, I tend to be more on Facebook than any of the other places. So, but I want to expand my LinkedIn and I want to expand on Twitter and a few of the other places. Then I can go into IFTT and it'll say, okay, when I post to a page, it's going to post to my LinkedIn profile. And so then I know if I have something that's business oriented, I post it to my page and it's going to automatically go to LinkedIn and I don't have to do anything more. And you can create these systems so that what happens is you do something once and this is the promise of technology, right? You do something and technology does all this stuff for you. And that's the beauty of Buffer, Hootsuite, and the rest of them, is that the technology can help you reach people in all these different places, and you don't actually have to go and log in, log out, log in, log out, and be there. So,
Hey, Scott, one more thing that I want to add too is that if you have a website, you can use IFTTT or Zapier to actually, create a blog post on your website, and that blog post then can automatically be shared to all of your social networks using these tools. And so you don't have to go to Facebook and say, hey, I just shared a blog post, go check it out. It can automatically do that by just, hitting submit on your website. Then once that submit button goes, your blog post is published on your website, and it also will go out to the social networks that you connect to that blog post. So it's pretty, like you said, this is the promise of technology, right? I mean, you don't have to do all this stuff, and you can aggregate your content everywhere around the world just using, a couple clicks in a few programs. So
yes, that's right. And so here is the caveat. Like, this is the good side of it. The bad side of it is I did something, I don't know what it was, and I got an email from LinkedIn. This is about 8 years ago. And it was like, dude, I don't know what you're doing, but we have suspended your account because you've gone crazy. And I'm like, what's going on? So I go to LinkedIn, and whatever I posted was posted on my LinkedIn like 10 times. So basically in 2 days, I had 5,000 posts or some crazy.
Oh my God.
So I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I did this. I didn't mean to, and I'll stop. And I've turned it all off and everything else. I said, okay, great. So I don't know that they would be so forgiving today as they were then, but you have to make sure that when you're doing these things that you're very careful that you don't leverage it to such a degree that it's an insane amount of posting, right?
Right.
And we have things called RSS feeds. So if you have a blog that you really like, you could take that RSS feed and connect it to, say, IFTTT. And every time there's a post on that blog or podcast or whatever it happens to be, it'll automatically post that on, let's just say LinkedIn. Well, if you pick one that has posts every 10 minutes, then you're posting something on LinkedIn every 10 minutes, and that's an abuse of the system, right? So
Yep.
you have to be really, really careful when you're doing this, that you're not spamming, right? I mean, this is the idea, is you want to get your information out to all these places, not that you want to be the only person in someone's Facebook feed because you're posting every 30 seconds.
Yep. So you do want to be careful of that. And I do want to share another strategy, if that's okay. Do we have time?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I shared this actually with a mastermind group I'm in, and I've used this before and it works really well, is that, people today really do like video. They just like watching this kind of stuff, right? They like watching content and videos. And so if you are on YouTube, and if you aren't, I recommend you get on YouTube. You should be on YouTube, and you want to record some videos. Here's this very simple strategy: is record a YouTube video. And these videos can only need to be 3 to 5 minutes, right? It could be longer or it could be shorter, only, a few minutes of some content that you want to share or something you want to talk about. Take that YouTube video, you can get the code for that, and you can embed that on your website as a blog post. And so if you're thinking, what kind of posts do I want on my website? What do I want to share on my website? Well, all you have to do is create a YouTube video, take the embed code. It says right there, share, take that embed code, and you can embed that video on and create a blog post with that video and say, hey, I just created a new video on YouTube. Go check it out. Here it is. And it will embed that video on your website, and it will create a simple post for you. And then if you want to take it a step further, on YouTube, you can actually get the transcript of that video, and you can copy the transcript text. And it depends on the video, Scott. You can actually get the transcript of that video and copy that text and put it below the video that you've just embedded. So now you actually have text in your blog post as well. So not only do you have the video, you have the text of that video. You share that as a blog post. And then if you have everything set up, it will automatically go out to Facebook and Twitter and say, hey, I just created a new blog post. So through one video, now you have multiple, again, content for your website. If you want to optimize your website for SEO purposes, you also can share it to different networks. And what's great about doing that strategy is that if you just create a blog post on your website, it may not get indexed, right, by Google right away, because Google doesn't know who your website is, right? They don't know you because, unfortunately, maybe you're not big enough or you're not an influencer enough. Only if you create that YouTube video first, now that video can get indexed by Google right away, because Google owns YouTube. And so they like to index things right away. And then if you post it on Twitter and Facebook, Google will index it even faster, because Twitter and Facebook are authority sites, and so they get indexed faster. And so that will then also help backlinks to your website, which will help your SEO process. So
that's right.
Very simple strategy using social media.
Yeah, if you put your YouTube video on your blog, on your site, it's going to really help your site a lot in a lot of different ways. And then, of course, you can also share it from your blog and from YouTube and everywhere else. So it becomes this messy web that's really pretty cool.
Yeah. So, again, don't get overwhelmed with social media and social networks. Choose a few, get to know them really well, get to use them, and then choose a couple strategies to start implementing and see what works for you, and play around with it. And, the idea is, pick one or two and get really good at it and build a following and start that engagement process.
That's right. And we put links to Hootsuite, Zapier, IFTTT, and the rest in the resources. So just click on that resource button wherever it happens to be, and then you can go check them out. I really strongly recommend that, just like Chaffee had said, just use one social network to start. If you haven't already got on a social network, just use one of these to start. Like, you only need one. We've given you 4 choices, but you only need one. So don't go and join all of them and then start doing. It'll just become a mess. You'll get confused, but pick that one and stick with it. Yeah.
Developing a social media strategy for you and your business is critical for you to not waste time on social media. So it could be a huge waste of time if you don't know what you're doing, or if you're doing everything. And again, develop a good strategy for you and your business. Schedule it out, plan it out, and you'll be amazed at the results that you get once you start using it with a strategy in place.
Yeah, and the problem with Chaffee and I is we keep riffing on each other and thinking of other things. So here's one thing that's really important. On something like Facebook or LinkedIn, there are groups. Yeah. And, so find a group that there's every possible topic in the world. So find those groups that are covering your topic, and then lurk. Check them out, see what's going on, see what they're talking about. That will give you a lot of ideas for content for the videos that Chaffee was talking about making, but also you can start answering their questions. And don't answer it like, here's an answer, by the way, if you want to know more, get my free ebook on my site or something like, don't do the sales pitchy thing, because what will happen is people will see you, they'll see that you're giving really good information, they'll see you contributing, and they'll be going like, who is this person? And they're going to check your profile out and say, oh, they do this, they do that, or like whatever it is. And it's a lot better when they're approaching you, and as opposed to you sort of saying, hey, I'm the best plumber in the world or whatever. come and use my service, as opposed to you've given really good information about plumbing and they say, wow, who is this guy? Oh, he's a plumber in my neighborhood. Great. Because there's a lot of local groups as well as a lot of international type groups or worldwide groups. And when and all of a sudden it's like, I need a plumber. Well, I remember good old Scott, he was giving all this great advice and he's got this nice site, so I'm going to go use him. So you want to have them attracted to you as opposed to you banging on the door all the time. But
Awesome.
Check out groups. All right. I think next week, if we're good, we can actually finish.
This was a long one, Scott.
They're all long. I get them and I cut them all in half so that they're under 20 minutes. and it's usually 19 minutes and 3 seconds and 19 minutes and 58 seconds.
Oh, we have another lecture, websites. I didn't know we had that.
Yeah. And then we've got the finishing touches.